our TSN Hockey insider, Darren Dreger, and from the Ray and Dregs podcast as well, part of the Go-Goat family. How are you, Darren?
I'm doing well, fellas. How are you guys this week?
Yeah,
superb.
Following this team
Good.
that just won't go quietly.
And I mean, here's hoping that, it stays that way pretty much to the bitter end. We're not at the bitter end yet. We're getting closer to the end, but it's been a fun ride, I think, inside that market. I mean, to see where the Vancouver Canucks are today as opposed to where they were when, they were forced to make the changes that they made is saying a lot about the players, especially. And then you have to give credit to Bruce Boudreau and the coaching staff and management, of course. But, they're keeping it interesting. And it feels like they're going to fall just short. But then you get to work, right? You get into the off season, you start looking deeper at your roster and some of the other decisions you have to make.
And if they were, trying to kitty bar the door shut and grinding out 1-0 wins and falling short, that would be one thing. At least they're entertaining us along the way too, Dregs. And at least those star players I talked about earlier are entertaining the fans. Like, they're doing it the right way here, even if they do fall short.
Couldn't agree more, Blake. And, I'm not going to compare Vancouver where they're at to the Montreal Canadiens, but, strong, dynamic, expecting Canadian markets. You go into a season and you expect that your team is going to be competitive. How competitive, where they're going to fit, are they going to be a playoff contender? I mean, okay, that's what 82 games is for. But the Montreal Canadiens, when they made the changes that they made, primarily in management, and then they shifted over, obviously, to the bench, they were fully transparent and said, okay, here's what we're going to do. And they still continue to try and execute that. But in the meantime, they're putting on a decent show. They're putting a brand of hockey on the ice that, again, I'm going to overuse the word, remains competitive, period after period. And from a fan base, you're heading in a different direction. There's more expected in Vancouver in the near future. Montreal is in a transition because Ken Hughes and Jeff Gorton won't use one of the R words like renovation or rebuild. So let's call it a transition. But it's important to do that, especially in Canada with strong markets, in a fashion that shows that you're still going to be entertaining. And Vancouver has work to do. We know this. And, Jim Rutherford, when he was first brought on, again, was very open about the hockey operations department that he wanted to have. And I think for the most part, the management group has been pretty open with what they see this team looking like in the not too distant future. So I like it. I mean, the games that I've watched, and I've watched quite a few, have been pretty entertaining, certainly competitive.
Dregs, the Canucks beat the Vegas Golden Knights last night. The bolstered Vegas Golden Knights, who got Mark Stone back, and obviously some cap gymnastics required to make all of that happen. I know at the governor's meetings or the GM's meetings recently, this idea of a playoff salary cap was raised, and here we go. I mean, Vegas is desperate. Let's be honest, right? Still on the outside looking in. A single point last night. They lose ground to just about everybody else in the race. Are there, like, if you're the Colorado Avalanche, what are you thinking if Vegas squeaks in and gets that second wildcard spot and all of a sudden you have to face Vegas in the opening round of the playoffs?
Yeah, well, you don't like it as a player, I don't think, Jeff. And more than a few managers brought up that perspective at those GM meetings in Florida. And, that was maybe to get us in the media to talk more about the idea of shifting or creating some sort of salary cap device in the playoffs in the future, whenever that is. Because from a competitive perspective, it does significantly change for the players who are on the ice in the field of battle, right? Again, let's always go back to the Tampa Bay Lightning. Tampa Bay Lightning had a real good year, but they weren't nearly as dynamic or strong without Nikita Kucherov in the regular season as they were when he stepped in healthy and helped lead them to a Stanley Cup championship. So there is a competitive imbalance there. So from a player perspective, some general managers are hoping that the Players Association gets engaged and shifts. But if you're Colorado or you're another contending team in the West, you don't like it, but you're probably used to it because you knew this was going to happen. You could see this, forecast this coming months ago, absolutely months ago. If I'm Kelly McCrimmon last night and I'm watching that game, with all due credit to the Vancouver Canucks and, what a way to win it, end it in overtime, I'm pretty frustrated with not only the outcome, but how did it get to that point? I mean, management in Vegas has played by the rules, even though, some will roll their eyes and say, well, look, I mean, it's legal cap circumvention. Well, it isn't. There's no such thing. The National Hockey League pays very close attention to this. Bill Daly has gone on record countless times in explaining, how you have to comply, particularly when you're putting players on LTIR. And that was the creative loophole, if we can call it that McCrimmon and the Vegas Golden Knights used in getting Mark Stone into the lineup last night. They added 3 more players to LTIR, including their backup goaltender. So it doesn't come without risk, but it seems like there's always a way to manage those sorts of things. And I would think that Colorado and some of the other contenders in the West across the league, frankly, know all that.
What do you make of Vegas, though, as a team? And obviously they've had their struggles, and injuries are a huge part of this story, but watching them last night, and the Canucks have seen them 3 times here in the last 9 games and taken points off them in all 3. There are some great individual talent. That's undeniable, but there's something feels like it's missing with this Vegas team.
Yeah, I agree with that. And they would probably have you believe that it's just been a season from hell. All teams dealt with extensive issues around restrictions and dealing with positive cases, COVID in general. Vancouver Canucks know that. I mean, no one got hit harder in the pandemic than the Vancouver Canucks. But then you had the injury run, right? And at one point, I believe there were 10 players out of the lineup. So I'm a big believer in Pete DeBoer and the coaching staff of the Vegas Golden Knights. And I've been a fan of Pete DeBoer as a head coach in the National Hockey. I think of him back in his days when they were winning with the Kitchener Rangers in the Ontario Hockey League. This guy is just a damn good coach. He is. He's dealt with a ton of adversity, and they've never had their lineup intact. So as it comes in together, if they can find a way to gut it out, qualify for the playoffs, of course they can be dangerous. I mean, when you look at what the Vegas Golden Knights can assemble via roster in the playoffs without a salary cap, I mean, it's like Christmas morning for the rich, right? Like, which present do you open first? So they got to get there. So I'd like to be able to answer your question. You have to say, well, here's exactly what they're missing, but maybe it's just feel, right? Maybe it's chemistry. Maybe it's just not having the ability to gel. And I know that sounds, cliche, but maybe that's it because of everything that they've had to deal with to this point.
Yeah, we love to make a big deal of, but that group or this group is not a team. And sometimes it might just be right. They're just not a team. It's just a lot of assembled talent, but it just doesn't work necessarily together. On the free agent front, one of the last, and I say big fish, it's really a lowercase b big. Ben Myers is signed with the Colorado Avalanche. He was fought for a little bit amongst the National Hockey League, but there really wasn't many other names to fall. And for Canucks fans, they were probably thinking that at least somebody would come this direction. Again, Archie Baines from the Western League, but no college free agents. It sounds like the Canucks were involved, Dregs, but they couldn't find somebody that was interested.
Yeah, look, there's no question that they would have been involved. To what degree on Ben Myers, it's hard to know. He literally had his pick of the litter. I know that Minnesota will be disappointed today. The Detroit Red Wings for sure will be disappointed today. I think that they felt like they were both strong contenders for Benny Myers. At the end of the day, I think it boils down to something very simple, right? These players, their advisors, their families, the hockey people around them they trust, they do a forensic audit of an organization. From the American Hockey League, maybe draft picks that are still playing in major, junior, other college players, all the way through the NHL. Where is the best fit? And in Ben Myers' case, it's not just about ice time. It's about putting himself in a place where he knows he's going to be in a winning environment. So I think most of us can appreciate why he would choose Colorado. But fellas, I can tell you, we talked about loopholes being changed. This is a big one. College free agency and how soon these players can become unrestricted free agents is a real tough one. It's a tough one for NHL clubs, especially, when you look at what Winnipeg had to go through, what Minnesota went through with their 2 players who ended up with the Arizona Coyotes, right? Like it's And the issue is, if you address one, in this case, the college free agents, then do you have to look more closely at the CHL and some of the other development leagues? So it's problematic. But to get back to your point, I can't imagine that Vancouver hasn't been deeply involved in multiple conversations, and will continue with some of the European and the Russian free agents as well. Again, Rutherford, when he took over the post, made that clear that they were going to turn over every stone. So I'm pretty certain that they would have been involved in these conversations.
Am I missing any deadline for Kuzmenko out of Russia to be signed? Is there any impetus to sign sooner rather than later for if you are him, or do we have the whole summer really?
Well, he does technically, I suppose, but I don't think he's going to wait that long. I believe that his season will likely end the end of this month. And then at that point, his agent, Dan Milstein, will dig in. And, look, they've got a real sound idea right now of the teams that are interested. And we're talking double digits, right? So whether he is pared down that list to a short list, I can't be sure. But Patrik Allvin was on Kuzmenko through Dan Milstein when he was with the Pittsburgh Penguins. And I know that he has circled back a few times to make sure that it's known that the Vancouver Canucks are in that conversation. So, Milstein and Kuzmenko will let him finish this season. Maybe there'll be some interviews with general managers and coaches around the National Hockey League, and then he'll have to make his decision. But I don't expect that he's going to let this drag into the summer.
We're seeing guys turn pro out of college, not free agents, obviously, but, some free agents, but also drafted players. Kent Johnson's going to make his NHL debut for Columbus against Montreal tonight. What were the early reviews on first overall pick Owen Power in his game in Toronto? And Dregs, I'm guessing the Leafs are pretty happy that they're not going to face the Sabres in the opening round of the playoffs.
Isn't it strange? Isn't it strange how good teams just, they've got their kryptonite, and that happens to be the Buffalo Sabres to the Toronto Maple Leafs. And, it's obvious that Toronto has way more firepower and talent, but they were sleepy last night. Right out of the gate, it looked like Auston Matthews, Mitch Marner, everyone around Matthews was just fumbling trying to get him that 59 and 60 goal, right? Instead of just playing the game that they've been playing teams or so, which is real consistent. They just got off track, and that's been the case against the Buffalo Sabres for whatever reason this year. Owen Power was not at all surprising to me, and I don't think you guys would be surprised by the game he played. 20 minutes time on ice, essentially 1950. Didn't get much power play time, a few seconds. That's going to change. I mean, Donnie Granato will find a way to get him into that mix. He killed some penalties. Made a real nice play, breaking up a chance. Giordano was looking for Auston Matthews for 59, and Owen Power stayed in the middle, played it perfectly, intercepted the pass, and made a routine play to get the puck out. But I think, again, even though he's a teenager playing a tough position, you got to look at his playing resume, right? Played in the Olympics. Well, things didn't go great there, but still played on the Olympic stage against men. He's won a gold medal with Canada at the Men's Worlds. Played some at the World Junior Championship and was a standout star at college hockey. So, Owen Power he's just built to be an NHL player. So I don't think there's going to be a whole lot of a transition move for him.
11 straight years without playoffs there for Buffalo. Do you see a light at the end of the tunnel for the Sabres, though?
I sure do. I do. And we talked a little bit about this off air last night. Excuse me. You look at the blue line. So they've got Rasmus Dahlin. Samuelsson is a nice player. Shel Samuelsson's son. Big kid. He looks like he's going to be a nice fit in their top four. Yuka Haru is a first-round pick. He looked good. He played with Owen Power last night. I believe Kevin Adams is still going to try and add a defenseman, somebody who can, flank Owen Power, mentor him. So a guy with some experience. He'll probably try and do that either through trade at the draft or in free agency. And then, you look around what they've got coming. They've got Jack Quinn coming, Peyton Krebs. If you look at the deals that they've made, okay, the significant deals. So they send Jack Eichel to the Vegas Golden Knights. The principal pieces coming back are Alex Tuch and Peyton Krebs. Alex Tuck made 3 or 4 sensational plays in that game against Toronto last night. He is a real nice add for them. Peyton Krebs is developing. He's going to be a real impact player. Tage Thompson comes over as part of that big package, sending Ryan O'Reilly to the St. Louis Blues. And look at his score sheet. Who saw that coming? This kid's just filling the net. So the one area of concern that I think, and we talked about this last night, they might have is first line center. You move a piece out like Jack Eichel, you don't replace that, but now you've got a big hole in your lineup. So you're not probably in the market for a Jack Eichel quality centerman, but they may have to fill that void as well.
You mentioned Auston Matthews looking for 59. Does he get to 65 goals? That would put him into a top 25 season of all time if he gets there.
I mean, obviously it's going to be tough. I think he falls just short. And I don't want to sound like a naysayer of the Christmas Grinch in saying that, but, of course he's capable. I just think that you guys saw it even last night. Things are so tight right now because it is a playoff environment. That's what the atmosphere is like. And the loosey-goosey stuff that even we saw last week in that horrendous game, I mean, it was wildly entertaining, but both coaches in Florida, Andrew Burnett and Sheldon Keefe, were looking through their hands on the bench because they just knew that the next mistake would lead to a goal, and turned out to be a 7-6 Florida overtime win. Things have tightened up, right? Defensively, things have tightened up. So as great as Matthews is, the support that he has, top-notch, I feel it's going to be a challenge for him to get to 65. So now he has 9 games left. I said that he'd score 6 goals in 10 games to get to 64, and I'm going to stick by that. We'll see. 65 is a big number.
The other problem for him is that, if the Leafs play okay here in the next handful of games, they'll probably get locked in at number 2. And if they're locked in at number 2, how much are you really drilling down? Because, I'm sure he likes round numbers, but really he wants to win playoff series at this point. How much are you drilling down, given that extra 9% to 110 when you just want to win your next playoff series a week from then, right? It's I'm not saying it's going to be conscious, but that subconscious extra 10% gets pretty tough, right? So,
you're right. Yeah. And then look, the way he didn't like his game last night. He shouldn't. Nobody with the Toronto Maple Leafs played well. And, he has really tuned up his game as a top center in the league. He has. He leaves points on the board. Maybe not goals, but points on the board because he doesn't cheat. And he pays close attention to the structure of the position. So I think that was a pretty big reminder to him and others in Toronto that they've got Washington coming up tomorrow. They've got to focus and be ready for the drop of the puck in round 1.
Dregs, thank you for this. Appreciate it as always. Have yourself a great week. We'll talk to you next one.
All right, guys. Be well.
Darren Dreger, a hockey insider, every Wednesday here on Sekeres the Price. And I know people probably hate the fact that I'm bringing up Auston Matthews. I think people just see it on their webpage, wherever they go for their news, and they just shun it because it's a Leaf bit of news. It is an historic season. It really is.
And I think you have to get past your hatred of the Leafs and recognize that it kind of feels like those summers of baseball, the home run chases and trying to rewrite the record. I can't get enough, quite frankly. And look, I have no vested interest in the Leafs. I'm curious about them come playoff time. But individually, I can't get enough of Auston Matthews because this guy is just making it look so easy. And here in Vancouver, we're looking at Bo Horvat, and he's on this incredible run and scoring on an almost nightly basis and can't hold a candle to the pace that Auston Matthews has been. Horvat's been doing it for 20 games. Matthews has been doing it all season long. And so, park the bias here and just enjoy, as you said, top 25 goal scoring season all time in the National Hockey League. If he gets there, that's some pretty heady stuff.
Bo, by the way, with the points last night, ties for his 3rd best season ever. It seems like a fait accompli. He's going to be his 2nd best season. We talked about some of the other players earlier on as well. Unbelievable stuff. Finish to the season for the Vancouver Canucks so far.